Girls War on Violence podcast. And this podcast is sponsored by our favorite WCBU 89.9 FM. And I am your host, Yolanda Wallace. And we are going to start off with a Bible verse today. It comes from Isaiah, the 64th chapter and the 8th verse. But now, O Lord, thou art the Father, we are the clay, and thou art the potter, and we are the work of your hands. Today, in our studio, we have, our topic is going to be about art. And our guest is Dr. Gilliland Wright, and I will turn it over to her so she can tell you a little bit about herself and how she got started in art.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me here, Yolanda. I'm excited to be here. So how did I get started with art? Growing up, I didn't think that I liked art at all.
Wow.
I think it's because, I know why, and I think it's this common misperception that art is drawing. And, I was a competitive kid, and I would sit down, and I think you get this a lot in schools, right, where kids start out, maybe, you give them a coloring book, and then you have them start, drawing 101. And if you're not good at that, and not everyone is, and it takes practice just like anything else.
Right.
And if you don't enjoy practicing it, then you certainly aren't going to keep trying. I came from a family of people who, my nephew, who's actually close to my age, he's a year younger, he was really good at drawing. And I thought, wow, if he's good and I'm not better than him, then I must not like art. But what I didn't realize until later is that, I started playing violin when I was 3. I was, piano. I was involved in the Suzuki program locally, and I was in choir, and my family did stained glass, leaded glass, and I was involved in that. So all of that time that I thought I didn't like art, because I really was like a science and math person, and that's what I really focused on, and I loved reading and literature. All of that time that I was growing up and I thought I didn't like art was, without me realizing it, giving me the critical thinking skills and the creative thinking skills to excel in all of those other areas, and eventually led me down the path of my academic career. But it was so instrumental in my upbringing, and I didn't realize it until I was much older.
Wow, that is so interesting because you do a lot of things around town with the art.
Yeah.
And let's look at the definition about what it says art is before we get into our deeper discussion. I got this definition from Oxford, and it says art, of course, art is a noun, and it is the expression or application of human creative skills, imagination, typically in a visual form such as painting, sculpturing, producing works to be appreciated primarily for the beauty of the emotional, for their beauty or emotional power.
I love that. That's from the Oxford English Dictionary, right?
Yes,
yeah.
The Oxford Dictionary said that. And I think that when we think about art, we think, like you said, we think about drawing, and we don't think about the other arts. And you mentioned a lot of those other arts that I'm about to talk about, the different genres of art. Like you said, the glass, drama, literature, science, all those different things. And then, of course, there also can be music, painting, writing, of course you said, poetry, dance, anything as simple as cooking or baking, and even sports. Anyway, the various branches that most of them branch off to, the most common ones rather, are the painting, the music, and the literature, and the dance. And you did some of all of that, and so once you found out that you love art, what inspired you to do the big picture?
That's a long. I'll make it as short as possible. My academic career, I think, is part of this because I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do for a career, and I fell in love with. I love literature, and I fell in love with ancient Greek. And I was trying to come up with ways to bring in my knowledge of computer programming and science and math, statistics, and to play with that. And so I stumbled upon a field that really didn't have a name at the time, which is digital humanities. And what it is bringing together the humanities, and that can include art, and you pair it with technology. And I really quickly fell in love with that. It took me to Scotland, where I did my master's and doctoral work, analyzing ancient Greek manuscripts using software that I worked developing to see how it changed over time. And then in the process of all of that, I was coming back to Peoria twice a year. I taught astronomy at the planetarium here, and I was doing the public shows. And so that whole time I'm really thinking that, I'll end up in a career that is focused on, technology probably, or science, something in the humanities field, but that would pair together, the science and technology background that I really cared about so much. And I was visiting back here, and again, long story short, I ended up meeting my now husband, Jonathan Wright, and he was very involved in the arts community here in Peoria. I had been living in Edinburgh, which is they have the largest performing arts festival in the world.
Wow.
So I was exposed. I lived across from, all of these, music halls and theaters, and I was constantly exposed to all of this. And I came back to Peoria. I actually ended up moving back here, and I was just very quickly blown away by how rich our cultural and art scene is here. It's due entirely to the folks who had worked on it, especially over that the couple of decades I had moved away and been away from the area. And I ended up joining the ArtsPartners board at that point. And then I was also writing, and I was working for a local publication, and I had a chance to meet artists and write about them on pretty much a monthly basis, and interview people who ran arts organizations, and that led me to a career at the Peoria Symphony Orchestra, where I worked for several years. And during that time, I became very involved in public art. I started a program called Sky Art Peoria with Arts Partners, where we put local art on unused billboard space, and those are really fun. If you'll see those as you drive around the area. And I met through that Doug and Eileen Loynig, who founded Big Picture Peoria. And a couple of years ago, they approached me and asked me if I would like to step up to be their first executive director.
Wow.
So long story short, it was kind of this roundabout, but it all worked out in the end, because some of the work we're doing now really does bring together, that science technology aspect that I cared about so much, and brought it together with the arts. We have, I know for sure we have more augmented reality murals in Peoria than anywhere else in the state. I think we may have more augmented reality murals than anywhere else in the United States. I haven't been able to verify that, but we now have 9 of those here in Peoria. And talk about bringing together art and technology. It's so much fun. Located? So the first one that we did is located, Eric Brinker, the president of the Metro Center, approached us about doing a mural on the Metro Center. And it's just, as you're driving down University, you'll see it. It's called Find Yourself Peoria. The artist behind that mural is Jeremy Berkeley. We worked with Bradley University faculty and students on an augmented reality app. When you hold your phone up to it, you'll find different icons on that mural, and you might hold it up to maybe it's a hockey puck and it'll take you to the Peoria Rivermen website, or you might hold it up to something that represents the Park District and it'll take you to there. So you can find all these wonderful things about Peoria.
I've never known that. I'll have to try that. I'm going to be standing in the middle of the street.
You can get close to it. You don't have to. No, don't put yourself in danger.
No, I'm not going to put myself in danger.
And the other 8 are located on the Peoria Public Library main library, which is in downtown Peoria. And those 8 murals are part of what we call Portraits of Peoria, and they celebrate Peorians or local folks who have made a difference locally, in many cases nationally, and in some cases globally.
Right.
And so when you hold your phone up to those murals, you can download the Portraits of Peoria app from the App Store, Apple and Android. You hold it up, and then a video will pop up, and it is a local actor portraying the person in the mural, and they tell the story. So you get to learn about the person in the mural, and they talk about their life and the things that they've done. And it's just a really neat project. And again, and it also, what I love about it is it changes that building and that drive down, Main Street in Peoria.
It does. Which, matter of fact, that's where I went to go see the opening of it, and I seen all those different. I think it was Adrian Hinton.
Valeska Hinton.
I'm sorry, Valeska Hinton.
Yeah.
And there was.
Well, we have Betty Friedan, we have Dr. Romeo B. Garrett, Bob Gilmore. I mean, several people, and some you may not even have heard of, like Fibber McGee and Molly. Annie Malone is another one.
That was the one.
And Nancy Liggins Costley as well.
And it was quite interesting. And matter of fact, me being a person who has been through some violence and some trauma and experienced it in my own personal life, it, because, nowadays the crime rates are rising everywhere, not just here, but, just across the border. It was nice to see something positive in the city. The art was outside that I could enjoy. So if I don't have enough money to go into the museum or whatever, where the other, art places are held, I could walk down the library, walk down the street, Main Street, and admire the library. And then there's also a mural that I'd seen over there at the East Bluff Community Center, and they had an opening there, and I'm just excited about all the art all around. It changes the atmosphere for me. It changes the culture of Peoria to become more inclusive, more friendlier, more exciting. Like, I can't wait to see what's the next art project going to be, where's it going to be at? Because it's just, it kind of gives you hope, you know?
Yeah, it does. That is the power of public art, is, as you said, it takes, away any barriers from folks getting into a room where there might be art, especially if they have to, if there's a cost associated with it. And fortunately in Peoria we have, I think there's this real push to ensure equity in the arts. The museum is doing a great job of that.
Yes, the museum's doing.
And you mentioned East Bluff Community Center. I absolutely love that mural. It was done by the Peoria Guild of Black Artists.
Oh, okay, yeah. And Ameren has done something down at the House of Hope.
Yes. Yep. So they're working with the Peoria Guild of Black Artists on a project.
On that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it really is something where, as you said, though, it takes down those barriers, but I think importantly is that it doesn't require you to go into a room. Public art is something that you, if you're driving or you're walking and it's there, then you see it, and it changes how you feel about a neighborhood, a part of the city. It changes that.
It does.
That element of creative placemaking impacts how you feel about the community. That impacts how you feel about yourself. It impacts economically as well. I mean, when you have a city that is filled with public art, when you have a city that has rich, cultural and arts offerings, people want to move there. and they want to stay there as well. So it's essential for our businesses. It's essential for our community health. And, I know that, as you said, you've been personally impacted, tragically impacted by violence. And art can address, it can't fix it, but it is part of this holistic approach to changing a community. And I think that we often think of art as this, quote unquote, it's nice to have it, right? Oh, it's art. It's just art. But actually, research has shown it's essential. It's a must-have. We have to have art as part of any policy, any approach that we have to enacting change in our communities.
And it's therapeutic, too. I was thinking about when I would go on the East Bluff and right there on the corner of Nebraska and Wisconsin, there would be actually, some people don't look at photographs as being art, but it is. And there was art of everyday people that lived on the East Bluff on a building, and it was beautiful just to see, because some of those people on there I knew, you know what I mean? It was like, oh, that was so exciting. They weren't small pictures, they were big pictures that you could see, that somebody cares about this neighborhood and stuff like that, and it really brought hope. And the other thing I want to share or talk about are the benefits of art. I was reading an article in Psychology Today by Joanne Handler, and she's a PhD, and she said that art is one's own or another's, way of, sharing their feelings. She said that art was a path to express or hide the feelings, because sometimes in a painting it can look one way to you, but it could really be a hidden message in the paint. But it is therapeutic in even dealing with people who are sick, having cancer and stuff like that, and long-term illnesses, that it was therapeutic in getting their psychological mind active in doing something to get their mind off the physical problem, because we know that stress, mental health, and the physical health that happens with our body is a direct effect of anxiety that everybody feels sometimes in a day, sometimes work. So doing things like art or leaving work early, she said, is very therapeutic in just relieving the stress. And so when we're walking around and just taking a walk and looking at the art, in my mind, sometimes I can trace the lines in some of the art as if I drew it myself, you know what I mean? And it's refreshing and relaxing. And it reduces stress and anxiety. And it's important that art be a part of our lives, because even music can be art. It's not just drawing, painting, performing arts. Music can be as well. I mean, playing in a band, a orchestrator who's, orchestrating the whole orchestra. It's vital to, I don't know, sometimes I think it's vital to our mere existence. Just thinking about, the kids going back to school and stuff like that. The kids need a reset in school. So, and having a reset, art is a good way to start a reset. Just all the drama and the trauma that they have at home, if that's what they have at home. If they don't, that's fine. But just the stress of going to a new school or, joining, some after-school program that you're new to, art is just a good way of introducing you to a new atmosphere where you can explore your own emotional, expressions and put it in paper, on the court, or wherever you want to do it.
Right. Yeah, I love that you made the point of you can even just listen. If visual art can be jarring in a way because you're looking at it, and music can change and your mood and other ways as well. So when I worked at the symphony, it was interesting because people would sometimes say to me, I love going to the symphony, but the music always lulls me to sleep. And I said, good. That's fantastic. I love the idea that you feel so comfortable in a group of, you're surrounded by, 1,000 people, but you're sitting in that chair and that music has relaxed you so much that you fall asleep. We did our job. Like, that's incredible.
That is,
and so, and I think that is, again, where we have, people, I think when they think of art, sometimes they think, I have to dress up and I have to do, no, just be who you are and that approach it in that way. It is so accessible, and it should be accessible to everyone.
I'm wanting to see, of course, my Mother's War on Violence. It's mostly been created to help the families in our city, and it's been interesting in starting this. After the John Buckley Memorial Garden, which is doing pretty good right now, but it's just, I'd like to see more art around town about, violence. I know Preston Jackson, he had one, a sculpture about violence, and I think it was down behind the Riverplex on the opposite side of the Memorial Garden. But I'd just like to see more of that, so that, because sometimes, like you said, the one young lady who writes it in a poem, that's kind of rare that you hear that in Peoria right now, because sometimes people look at it as a negative thing, but they don't understand how therapeutic her words can be, just like a art mural of what violence is, and and how we can stop it. Sometimes when it's absent from the eyes, it's absent from the mind, that other people could be going through something different. However, when you go in big cities, you see more expanded, art murals about, say no to drugs or whatever, what I mean? And I think that's something that I'd like to see in our city one of these days.
I agree 100%. And
we've talked about this
before. We have talked, and I think, so part of that, so I want to just briefly, as part of this response to this, go back to the Giving Voice. We had, one of the things that we ask students to do, especially when they are, we have students who do illustrations, we have students who do all kinds of stuff, photography.
Right.
We're trying to get into music as well. We even had students work on podcasting as part of that's a creative, approach to something
art
as well. It is, it is. But one of, some of our students write articles or they write about their experience, not in not in prose, but they're writing articles. And we had one student. We have several students though who write about their experiences, and we always say, hey, if you're writing about it, one of the things you could do is provide a solution. So you're not just saying, here's the problem, but what do you think is the solution to something? We had a student who wrote about her experience. Her family is from Nigeria, and she's Muslim, and she wrote about her experience as a Muslim, and offered, advice to folks that, if someone looks different or has, a different background, how do you, what is her advice to other students or to adults to deal with that? And it was really powerful to encourage students to think about, okay, what is the solution to these problems? What do you think, from your point of view? And then to your point about public art that addresses what, community is experiencing in violence, one of the things that I think is really important for Peorians to really think about is, we can't rely on people from outside to fix our problems. If there are business owners, if there are people who have, they have, been blessed to have enough income that they maybe could donate to something, think about saying, hey, yeah, take this side of my building, and here's some money for that paint to pay the artist, because one of the things that we are really adamant about is ensuring that the artists, the people who are creating, are paid. That's why we pay the students. We want them to learn that their creative abilities are worth something. Right. And what I love, Peoria Guild of Black Artists actually has a really great sort of, they put it on, some of their merchandise and everything, but it's this line, and it is, exposure doesn't pay the bills. And art is not just about, you're not just getting exposure as an artist, but you should be paid as an artist. So I think as a community, we need to really think about, what are we investing in? And I think investing in a project like that would be extremely powerful.
Oh, yeah, I do too. I think so too. And I also wanted to mention where Jonathan Romaine is. That is a nice, they have nice murals on the windows of that old Greeley school down there. And it really gives life down there, on the north end of Peoria, where, people are coming through Adams and Jefferson, and they can see that.
So that's Artist Re-Envisioning Tomorrow, which is commonly known as Art Inc. So Nikki Romaine, his wife, is the executive director. And they are doing incredible work. They have programming for, folks, mainly younger folks, and he's changing lives, and she is changing lives. I mean, they have a really large staff. They have that huge building, so they can do so much in it.
They do.
But more of that is needed here.
It is in Peoria. Yes, it is. And I know Jonathan has fought for many years to get a voice in art, and so I'm so glad that now art has always been here in Peoria. Don't get me wrong, with Arts Partnership, but I'm glad that there's starting to be more of a cluster of more art things. And I tell you, there's one place down in the museum that I seen. I came and took a tour with the director down there,
John Morris.
And he showed me a picture of these two black boys, and I don't know the name of the artist offhand, but I stood there looking at these two black boys, and they were brothers, and is what the artist said on the side of them. And I looked at those boys, and I was like, that could have been my boys. You know what I mean? Just like
that might be a Jonathan Romaine piece. I could be wrong, but
no,
it wasn't. Okay, because he does have a piece of two young men together.
They're short hair. Okay, I don't know. No, it didn't say Jonathan Romaine. It says, I don't know if he was from the St. Louis area. Is what it said. And anyway, it was just quite interesting just to see, people that look like you, and it's good to see diversity in everything. All the art that I've seen around town. It seems to be having a lot of.
And there are efforts at. Really, in the past, I would say, since I moved back to Peoria, I've really seen a shift in that, and I don't think people even quite realize how many arts organizations there are. I mean, visual arts alone, you've got places like, I'm not going to name all of them. I'm just going to say right now because I'll freak out this. But you've got like the Peoria Art Guild, and there you can walk in there and you can see their gallery. You've got the Contemporary Art Center. Again, I actually took my students to interview as part of their project Preston Jackson, and they were all engineering students, and they had never really left Bradley campus, I don't think, and they were. I took them in there, and they had never been in the Contemporary Arts Center, and their eyes just got big, and they're looking around, and they walk in, and Preston Jackson is sitting there, and you know, right away I knew that this was going to be something they would never forget for the rest of their lives. And they had a chance to interview him for about 30 or 40 minutes about a piece he did called Knocking on Freedom's Door, which is about the Underground Railroad and is placed at the home of Moses Pettengill that actually, it burned down, but the Civic Center is now there, so it's outside the Civic Center. So they were interviewing him about this piece as part of a project they were working on. And at the end of it, I took them around. You can walk around the artist studios, and they said, we had no idea this was here. And and at the end of the semester, I asked the students, you know, what their favorite memory was, and the group that went said, meeting Preston Jackson and going to the Contemporary Arts Center. It wasn't anything else that they had done. But, you know, we have, and then, you know, on the visual arts side, on the performing arts side, you have Peoria Symphony Orchestra, 14th oldest symphony in the United States. Wow. I know. Yeah. And you've got, you know, the
and they're always at the Civic Center.
They're often, and they are also, you can find them at, they have other venues like Grace Presbyterian Church, or they're actually going to be at the Bradley Coliseum at the end of their season. Okay. But, you know, and then the theater, you know, of course we have to mention Cornstalk, Peoria Players. That's right.
Oh, yeah.
And those, they have wonderful productions. So, you know, when people tell me that they don't have they can't find anything to do in Peoria, look at an arts calendar. There's, you know, and actually Arts Partners, if you go to the artspartners.net, so it's artspartners.net website, they have a comprehensive arts calendar. And I guarantee you that you can find something to do, even if it's, you know, the Central Illinois Jazz Society, going and listening to one of their shows. There's really fun. And I think that, you know, you talked about, you know, mental health and anxiety. Art heals. It does. It has been proven. There are studies. It shows it helps people who are in need of immediate healing. You know, hospitals, art is very important to have them within hospital rooms. But art also helps heal each of us individually every day. You know, most people have at some point in their life struggled with anxiety or depression. Art is essential to addressing that. There is a large mural, probably most of the listeners have seen this mural in downtown Peoria. It's on the courthouse. It's Abraham Lincoln. And this was actually done by Doug Loinig, and it was the first, it was why Big Picture was formed, was so that they could put this mural up. But it is called Abraham Blue, because Abraham Lincoln, we think of him as, you know, this very strong president who brought us, you know, the nation through this very difficult Civil War. What a lot of people don't know is that he dealt with something called melancholia, which was really just depression. I mean, he got into some really dark times. And so that mural is to bring attention to the fact that even this figure that we put up statues of him, and he's, you know, he's on our money, and we talk about him, you know, the greatest president of all time, he struggled. But he was also someone who found healing through the art. Well, I suppose some listeners might laugh at that because he did die at the theater. But in general, that doesn't happen.
He was watching it. Well, that reminds me of the Richard Pryor statue that's down there on Water Street. So we've got many things to go.
Do you know that statue? You know that's why I'm living in Peoria. That statue. So
which one? The Richard Pryor.
The Richard Pryor is why I'm now living here. No, so I met my husband because he was on the Richard Pryor Sculpture Committee. Oh, boy. And to bring that, you know, to get that sculpture there. And I met him, and I thought, who is this guy who's a writer, and he's involved in bringing this, you know, this sculpture, and then that's what got me interested in him, and then I met him, and I moved here. That's Preston Jackson's fault. But I think that sculpture, that is another great point, because
art is a way of bringing people together, too.
Well, it is, and also that sculpture was very controversial because people, you know, comedy is an art. And if there is anyone who was, I mean, Richard Pryor is known as one of the greatest comedians of all time. He's here from Peoria. And Peoria, you know, yes, he was controversial, but but at the same time,
some people may think I'm kind of controversial at times, but
it starts a conversation.
It does.
But also, what we did there, and what Preston had the vision for, and the people who worked on that project, was we were going to recognize someone who's from Peoria, who was an incredible artist. He was
famous,
famous comedian, and we're going to be proud of our heritage. And I think Peoria suffers oftentimes from this. We're not proud of who we are.
Right.
We can change that, and art is
a good way to do it. It's a good venue.
And that's
for
what
that.
the Portraits of Peoria, where you're celebrating someone like Valeska Hinton. She was known as the mother of civil rights here in Peoria. She has a school named after her, which is wonderful. But so that particular mural, it was. The artist who did that is Brenda Pagan. She's one of the founding members of the Peoria Guild of Black Artists. And the performing artist who did the video is Michelle Watson. And we did research on Valeska Hinton, and we came together that day. And one of the most magical things about the day we dedicated those murals is that Valeska Hinton's granddaughter was there.
Oh, wow.
And she was standing, by the painting. We all went inside because we at the time we put the original painting that the mural is based on inside the library, and we showed her the video of Michelle Watson portraying her grandmother, and she broke down in tears, and she said, "My grandma is alive again."
Aww.
And her story is out there.
Oh, that's precious.
And it was just, there was not a dry eye.
And I bet it just brought so much healing to the families. Yeah. I think about even the Park District and the healing things that they have. It's just, we could go on and on and on.
Yes, yeah, we could.
But we are not. But I tell you what, if you ever having any blues, if you ever feel like you just need a place to go think or to reflect or to get away from stuff, go visit an art place. And I thank you again, Miss Mae, for joining us on our Mothers War Against Violence podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Yolanda. I really appreciate the work that you're doing, and it was a pleasure to be here and talk with you today.